Have you ever wondered why your hand just reaches for your phone the moment you wake up?
Oh, definitely. Or like why it's so incredibly hard to resist that junk food, even when you absolutely know it's not the best choice.
Exactly. It's this huge thing, the power of habits.
Yeah.
It affects all of us every single day.
It really does. And we often hear about, the cue, routine, reward loop, that basic structure.
Right. But for this deep dive today, we want to go a bit further. We're not just defining it. We want to unpack the maybe surprising ways our brains actually hardwire these things.
And crucially, how we can maybe consciously re-engineer some of those patterns that aren't serving us well.
Yeah. So our mission here is really to get into the science of how habits form, why the tricky ones, the bad habits, are so tough to break.
And hopefully equip you with the understanding to maybe start building some healthier ones consciously.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, let's start with a story, something relatable. Imagine a guy, let's call him Jack.
Okay.
Jack. So Jack finishes work, he's tired, right? Walks home, and pretty much without thinking, grabs a bag of chips, slumps down in front of the TV.
Sounds familiar.
And he does this every single day. After a while, maybe a few weeks, Jack doesn't even make a decision about it. It just happens. It's automatic.
That automaticity is so key. It really feels like parts of our brain are just designed to automate things like that. What's actually going on in there?
Well, a lot of that automation comes down to a specific brain area. It's called the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia. Right. Deep inside.
Exactly. It's crucial for what they call procedural learning. Basically, it helps us learn and then repeat sequences of actions. Think about brushing your teeth or tying your shoes.
Or Jack's chip routine.
Yeah. The basal ganglia records that pattern and just runs it, kind of freeing up the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex.
Where the heavy lifting, the conscious decision-making happens.
Right. So the basal ganglia takes over the routine stuff, making Jack's chip grabbing feel almost, involuntary when that tired after work feeling hits.
Okay, so the brain loves these shortcuts. It makes sense. How do researchers typically break down this whole process? Are there, distinct parts to every habit, even Jack's?
There are. It's usually broken down into that three-part loop you mentioned earlier. Every habit, simple or complex, seems to follow this structure.
The cue, routine, reward.
Exactly. First up is the cue. That's the trigger. What kicks off the behavior? For Jack, it's feeling tired after work.
Okay, the trigger. Makes sense.
Then you've got the routine. That's the action itself, the behavior.
Just eating chips, watching TV.
Yep. And finally, number 3, the reward. This is the feeling, the outcome you get. For Jack, maybe it's relaxation or comfort or just zoning out.
And the brain really likes that reward.
Oh, absolutely. Our brains are wired to seek out those good feelings. So to get that reward again, the brain just keeps running the routine.
Which reinforces the connection between the cue and the routine.
Until, boom, it's automatic, hardwired.
Okay, now this next bit, some research from MIT, I find this fascinating. It adds a whole other layer.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to change a habit.
So the MIT research basically showed that when a habit becomes really strong, truly ingrained, the brain activity associated with conscious decision-making actually decreases during the routine.
It stops making decisions. It's not just a metaphor. The brain literally shifts gears. It goes on autopilot.
Exactly, which is super efficient for things we want automated. But
if you're trying to change something, and your conscious mind isn't even really involved in running the old habit, how do you even step in?
Precisely. That autopilot mode is why breaking bad habits feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You're not just fighting desire, you're fighting a deeply embedded, almost non-conscious program.
So what's the key then, based on that research? If willpower alone isn't enough, because the decision-making part is offline.
The crucial insight, the big takeaway, is you don't necessarily fight the cue, and you don't ignore the reward the brain wants. Instead, you have to strategically target the routine.
Change the action itself.
Yes. Keep the trigger, understand the reward you're seeking, but consciously, deliberately swap out the middle part, the routine, with something different.
Okay, that feels actionable. So let's go back to Jack. He feels tired after work, cue. He wants to relax, reward.
Right.
Instead of the chips and TV routine, he could consciously choose something else. Maybe go for a short walk while listening to music.
Exactly. Or maybe call a friend. Or do some light stretching, something else that delivers that feeling of relaxation or unwinding.
He still gets the reward, that feeling he's craving, but through a different, maybe healthier pathway, a re-engineered routine.
Precisely. It's about finding a new route to the same or a similar desired destination, honoring what the brain wants, but changing how you get there.
That makes so much sense. It really puts the focus on deliberate action rather than just, trying not to do something.
Yeah, not doing is really hard. Doing something else can be easier.
Okay, let's make this even more real. Thinking about our own lives. What's a habit you've personally wrestled with using this kind of thinking?
Oh, okay. For me, it used to be soda. Definitely. Every single time I sat down at my desk to work.
Ah, the work cue.
Yeah. Laptop opens, can of Coke opens. It was like clockwork. Didn't even think about it. And part of me honestly believed I needed it to kickstart my brain for work.
I totally get that feeling, that ritualistic aspect. It's amazing how these things embed themselves, almost separate from whether we actually enjoy them anymore.
Right. It wasn't even about enjoyment after a while, just the ritual, the automation.
And that really highlights that autopilot thing we were talking about.
It does.
Yeah.
But applying this idea, the cue is still there, sitting down to work. But I consciously changed the routine. Now, I make tea.
Okay. Similar action, preparing a drink.
Yeah, it involves getting up, doing something with my hands, getting a warm drink. But it's obviously a healthier choice. And the reward, it's still that feeling of, okay, I'm settled, I'm ready to focus now.
That's a great practical example.
Yeah.
It's not about deprivation, it's substitution. Finding a better routine for the same cue and reward.
Exactly. What about you? Anything you've tackled?
Well, yeah, the one I mentioned at the start, the phone checking. First thing in the morning,
Yeah.
I wake up, and honestly, my hand just moves. It's robotic.
Zombie scroll.
Totally. And often, it's not even interesting. It just happens. So I've been trying to insert a different routine right after the cue waking up. Instead of grabbing the phone, I try to do just 5 minutes of deep breathing.
How's that going?
It's not perfect. Some days the phone wins, but many days I manage the breathing instead. And it definitely feels like a more intentional, calmer start. It's progress.
And that's so important. Progress, not perfection. People often get discouraged because they expect an overnight transformation.
Right, like flipping a switch.
Yeah, but changing habits, especially long-standing ones, is more like gently turning a big ship. It takes consistent small adjustments. Celebrating those tiny wins, like you doing the breathing instead of scrolling, is huge.
I agree. And, just by listening to this, engaging with this deep dive, you listening right now are actually building a positive habit.
That's a great point. The habit of learning, of growing, of understanding yourself better, that's a fantastic foundation.
It really empowers you, doesn't it? Knowing it's not some kind of magic or pure willpower, it's science. It's understanding these mechanisms in your brain.
Absolutely. And you can use that understanding for anything, drinking more water, studying more consistently, exercising regularly. It all boils down to identifying that loop.
Cue, routine, reward.
And then consciously choosing a new routine, one small intentional shift repeated over time. That's where the change happens.
So maybe a challenge for everyone listening. What's one habit you want to change or maybe build?
Yeah, take a second. Think about it. What's the cue? What's the current routine? And what's the reward you're really getting from it?
Maybe today's the day you start thinking about swapping out that routine. Just thinking about it is the first step.
Let's do it together. Step by step. Habit by habit. We're always looking for ways to learn more effectively. And today, we're taking a closer look at something pretty fundamental, I think. It's the science of habit formation.
Yeah.
Specifically, how it applies to us, to B1, B2 English language learners.
Right, which is a stage where, consistency really starts to matter a lot.
Totally. So our mission here, like always, is to dig into the sources you shared, find those key nuggets of knowledge, basically. Give you a shortcut, maybe, to understanding how habits really work when you're trying to learn a language.
Yeah, trying to make it stick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My goal, really, is to find the stuff that makes daily practice feel less like a chore.
And more automatic, right?
Yeah.
More like, a habit.
Yes, less like pulling teeth. So we'll be breaking down, the core parts of a habit, looking at some useful grammar points that come up, and some learning strategies, all straight from the sources.
And what I find really fascinating, honestly, is seeing how these universal ideas about habits, how they translate so directly into language learning, which, let's face it, can be tough.
Oh, definitely.
It's not just about English, though. That's the thing. It's more about a framework, a way of thinking that can make any kind of learning feel more, automatic. Deeply ingrained.
Like it's just part of who you are.
Exactly. So this deep dive, it's really for you, the listener, to get some practical tools, things you can use to make real progress quickly and properly.
Okay, so let's start with some basics, the building blocks. Because if we're going to talk habits, we need the language for it.
Terminology, yeah.
Our source material points to 3 really key terms: cue, routine, and reward.
The classic loop.
Right. So a cue is that signal, the trigger that kicks off the habit, like maybe seeing your running shoes by the door or your phone buzzing. That's the cue. It tells your brain, okay, time to do the thing.
Precisely. And right after that cue comes the routine. That's the action itself, the behavior that happens next. So if the cue is your language app notification buzzing, the routine might be opening it and doing, say, a quick 5-minute exercise.
Okay, makes sense.
And the last piece is the reward. That's the benefit, the good feeling you get afterwards. Understanding something new, nailing a grammar point, using a new phrase correctly.
Okay. So that feeling is the reward.
It is. And it reinforces the whole cycle. But what often gets missed, I think, especially in language learning, is that the reward isn't always like instant fluency. That's a long way off sometimes.
That's such a good point. I remember trying to start a journaling habit. My cue was supposed to be when I felt inspired, which basically meant
Never.
pretty much never. It just didn't happen. It wasn't until I changed the cue to something solid, like right after my morning coffee, that it finally started to stick. Is that kind of what the sources say about good cues for learning?
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize that for language learning, the more consistent and specific your cue is, the better it works. Like when I sit on the bus or during my lunch break. And about the reward, your point is spot on. For B1, B2 learners especially, that feeling of reward can feel, well, delayed.
Right. You're not going to be fluent after one study session.
Exactly. So our sources highlight that these intermediate rewards are crucial. Things like, celebrating finishing a tough exercise or maybe understanding a short news clip for the first time.
Or even just that feeling of, okay, I did my study session for today. That little check mark feeling.
Yes. That sense of completion. Those smaller wins are absolutely vital for keeping the habit loop going before you hit those bigger long-term fluency goals. It's about taking the decision-making out of it, making it automatic.
I really like that phrase, intermediate rewards. That feels manageable, actionable. Our sources also mention automatic. That's the goal, right? When it's ingrained, you do it without thinking. And craving, that strong desire that can actually drive the habit loop. Plus productive, meaning you're getting stuff done efficiently. And trigger, which is just another word for cue, basically.
Right.
So understanding these parts is kind of step 1 to building better English habits. Yeah.
Definitely. And this whole concept really comes alive when you think about how you can dissect your own learning process. If you want to make studying English automatic, you've got to consciously figure out what's my cue, what's the routine, and crucially, what's the reward, even a tiny one. That motivates you to keep going.
It reminds me of that Seinfeld productivity thing. Don't break the chain.
Exactly. Just keep marking the calendar each day you do it. It sounds almost too simple, but it's incredibly effective.
Okay, so understanding the loop is great. But how do we actually talk about changing habits? In English, our sources give us 2 really useful structures for B1, B2 learners that let you describe that shift.
Yes. Good ones.
Used to and instead of used to is brilliant for talking about old habits, things you did regularly in the past but don't do anymore. Like, I used to watch hours of TV every night, or she used to bite her nails. It clearly signals a past habit that's finished.
Yeah, and this makes you think, doesn't it? What past English learning habits are you maybe trying to break? Maybe you used to only cram before a test.
Guilty.
But now you want that daily consistency. The structure is pretty simple. Subject plus used to plus the base form of the verb, like I used to procrastinate. Really important for describing that discontinued action, showing how your routine has changed.
And then the other one, instead of, that's perfect for showing you swapped one action for another. Like, instead of scrolling social media, I review vocabulary. Or, he started walking instead of taking the bus. It's like your verbal tool for showing a substitution, a conscious choice.
And what's really powerful there linguistically is how instead of lets you articulate replacing an old, maybe less helpful routine with a new, more productive one.
Right. It's not just what you start, but what you started doing in its place.
Exactly. And the structure is instead of plus noun or instead of plus verbing. So instead of watching TV or instead of procrastination, it's really useful for spelling out those deliberate habit changes.
So as you're trying to get comfortable using these, like used to and instead of in your own speaking, it's good to know about some common mistakes, right? Our sources point out a few tricky grammar spots for B1, B2 learners.
Yeah, some classic pitfalls.
Like saying, I used to study late. That's wrong. It always needs the D. I used to study late. That D is vital for talking about past habits.
It really is. It's amazing how often that little sound gets dropped, but it changes the meaning or just sounds incorrect. Another one they mention is, instead to read, I listen.
Ah, yeah, I hear that sometimes.
The correct way is, instead of reading, I listen. You absolutely need that O and then the ing form, the gerund after, instead of if you're using a verb there. These aren't just tiny slips. Getting them right is pretty fundamental for sounding natural at this level.
And one more really common one. I have a good habit to wake early. Sounds okay, but it's not quite right.
What should it be?
It should be, I have a good habit of waking early. You need the preposition of and the gerund again. It seems small, but these little corrections really boost your fluency and accuracy, and they help cement these habit-related structures in your brain.
Precisely. Fixing those mistakes actually reinforces the correct patterns, which in turn helps you build more accurate, more solid English habits overall.
Okay, so we've got the cue routine reward loop down. We know how to talk about changes using used to and instead of. How do we actually apply this to concrete learning tasks, like, say, vocabulary or pronunciation?
Good question.
Our sources have some really practical tips that use this habit science. Like, they suggest making flashcards with those keywords we just talked about, cue, routine, reward.
Okay.
But here's the clever bit. They really focus on how to make using those flashcards an automatic routine.
Linking it back.
Yeah, by pairing it with a specific cue you already have, like maybe right after you brush your teeth or during your coffee break, and then giving yourself that little reward, maybe just taking it off a list, or that feeling of, okay, done.
That's the connection. It's taking the theory of habit formation and making it practical, something you can actually do. The sources also mention something like recording yourself saying, maybe, 3 target phrases every day, and then listening back and shadowing them, repeating them, maybe twice a day.
Oh, interesting. Like a mini pronunciation habit.
Exactly. It's a brilliant way to apply the routine and repetition ideas. Recording yourself, repeating these are concrete actions. They fit perfectly with habit formation. Small, consistent steps that can really pay off in your pronunciation and remembering vocabulary.
It brings back that idea, doesn't it? Tiny changes lead to big results. It's not just a nice saying. It's actually how habits work, especially for language learning.
Absolutely. It's a core principle.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, the listener, who's working on your English? We've talked about the core pieces. Cue, routine, reward. We've seen how small, consistent actions, especially with those little intermediate rewards, can really add up. And we looked at how specific bits of English, like used to and instead of, help you talk about changing your habits, plus those common grammar mistakes to watch out for.
And if we really bring this back home to your own learning journey, the real power is in doing something with this knowledge. Don't just, understand the concepts intellectually. Try to start applying them right away to your own English study habits.
Like, what new cue could you set up today?
Yeah. What small routine could you realistically stick to, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes to start? And what's that little reward going to be? That thing that makes it feel worthwhile and helps it stick.
And it's worth remembering that really powerful message from the source material we looked at.
Which one was that?
Building strong English habits is just like building life habits. It's about small, consistent steps done daily.
Yes.
And crucially, don't aim for perfection, aim for progress.
I really like that message. What stands out to me is the focus on consistency over intensity. You don't need hours every day.
Right. Just showing up.
Yeah, just showing up consistently, even for a short while. That builds momentum. It makes learning English feel less like a project and more like just a part of your day.
Yeah.
Automatic, ingrained.
So we want to leave you with a thought, a question really straight from our sources, something to think about and maybe even act on.
Okay.
What new English habit will you start today? Try and carry that question, that little spark, forward into your routine. See what happens.